The slap cracked across the yard. Loud, flat, final. 50 men went silent. The man who threw it was 6'4" and had put someone in a coma over a card game. The man who received it was a lightweight champion with 18 wins, 0 losses, and 14 knockouts. He could have ended the conversation in the time it took to draw a breath. He did not. "Welcome to my house, boy," the big man said. The yard stayed silent. Blake's head turned slow back to center. He said nothing. Not a word. Not a sound. "I like the quiet ones." The big man leaned in closer. "Quiet ones are the most fun. They think hope is a plan." A guard watched from the rail, keys swinging. He looked away slowly, the way a man looks away from something he has decided he did not see. Blake stood still, cheek burning, pulse even. And under the sleeve of his gray uniform, his right hand curled closed. Slow, certain, the way it used to before a bell. The knuckles remembered. Each one had been wrapped in tape 1,000 times. Each had ended fights faster than men could blink. He breathed out. He let the fist open. "Not yet." Have you ever watched a man get hit just for walking into a room? This is that story. Stay with us. Ironwood State Correctional sat 2 hours past the last gas station, behind 3 fences and a river of razor wire. The walls held 1,200 men. The yard smelled of iron, bleach, and old rain. Sound carried strange in there. A cough echoed. A whisper traveled. And everyone learned fast that silence was a kind of currency. Blake Foster had been inside for 9 days. Before Ironwood, his name meant something. Lightweight champion of the state. 18 wins, 0 losses, 14 by knockout. Promoters flew in from 2 coasts. One slid a contract across a diner table with a number that had 6 figures and a private jet attached. Blake read it twice. Then he folded it in half and pushed it back. "My mother is sick," he said. "I am not leaving. She had stage 3. The treatments cost more than he made, so he took night shifts at a warehouse off Route 9. He trained at dawn, worked until dark, sat by her bed in between. He told himself the title could wait. Titles always wait. Mothers do not. Then came the robbery he did not commit. A gas station 2 blocks from his gym was hit at midnight. The clerk described a tall black man with a fighter's build. Blake was tall. Blake was black. Blake had a fighter's build. The security tape was grainy. The lineup was rushed. And the public defender had 40 other cases that month. The jury took 2 hours. The judge gave him 6 years. He never raised his voice. Not at the verdict. Not at his mother's face in the gallery. He just looked at his hands, the ones that had ended fights in seconds, and made himself a promise. In here, those hands stayed down. One swing, even a fair one, could add years. He would not give them that. He would do his time and go home to her. That was the plan. Wade Hartley was the problem. Hartley ran Block C like a small kingdom. 6'4", 240 pounds. A neck like a fire hydrant, and a laugh that made new men flinch. He had been inside 11 years for putting a man in a coma over a card game. He liked new arrivals. He called them tribute. He took their commissary, their phone minutes, their dignity, and when they had nothing left, he took their fear and kept it like a pet. What made Hartley untouchable was not his size. It was Officer Dale Puit. Puit worked the C-block floor. He carried his keys low and his eyes lower. When Hartley collected, Puit found a reason to be at the far end of the hall. When a camera might catch something, Puit remembered it needed cleaning. They never spoke of an arrangement. They did not have to. A nod here, a blind eye there. Hartley kept the block quiet. And Puit wrote reports that said all was well. So when Hartley slapped the new man in the yard, he expected the usual. A flinch, a stammer, a tribute paid. He did not know what he had touched. He did not know that the quiet man's hands had been insured for more than Puit earned in a decade. He did not know about the 18 wins, the 14 knockouts, the reflexes drilled so deep they fired before thought. He saw a slim black man with downcast eyes and read weakness. The whole block read weakness. They were all looking at the wrong thing. They watched Blake's lowered head and missed the stillness underneath it. The kind of calm that is not surrender. It is a fighter pacing himself. It is a man counting rounds. Blake lay on his bunk that first week and listened to Hartley's laugh roll down the tier. He thought of his mother's voice on the phone, thinner each call. He thought of the promise. Keep the hands down. Go home. He did not know the promise was about to cost him everything. What came next would not happen all at once. It almost never does. The chow hall ran on rules nobody wrote down. Where you sat. Who you looked at. How long you held a stare. Blake learned them. By watching. He took a corner seat, back to the wall, tray in front of him. Gray meatloaf. 2 slices of bread. A carton of milk he was saving for the calcium. In the corner of the hall, an old man with half glasses and a gray beard watched the new man sit down and eat. He watched the way Blake set his hands flat on the table, and something moved in the old man's face. Recognition. He said nothing yet. He waited. He almost made it through the meal. Hartley crossed the room slow, with 2 men trailing him like shadows. The hall noticed before Blake did. Forks went still. Conversations dropped to nothing. By the time the shadow fell across his tray, Blake already knew. You are in my seat, Hartley said. There were 40 empty seats. Blake started to rise. He did not argue. He just reached for his tray to move. Hartley got there first. One thick hand flipped it. The tray spun, and meatloaf and bread and milk hit Blake square in the chest, then slid down to the floor. The carton burst. White ran down his gray shirt like something split open. The hall laughed. Not all of them, but enough. Enough that the laughter became its own wall, and Blake stood inside it, dripping, alone. Clean it up, Hartley said. You made a mess. Blake looked at him, just looked, and in that half-second, something flickered behind his eyes, fast as a counterpunch, then gone. He knelt. He gathered the bread. He wiped the milk from the floor with a napkin that fell apart in his hand. He did it without a word, the way a man does a thing he has decided to survive. 200 men, and not one stood. Not one said a word. The old man in the corner set down his fork. He looked at his tray and did not eat. He looked at Blake's back, bent over a wet floor in a room full of silence, and he made a decision about what he was going to say the next time he saw him. By the door, Officer Dale Puit watched the whole thing. When Hartley glanced his way, Puit did the smallest thing imaginable. He nodded. The slap had been a test. The tray had been a message. What came next was a campaign. And what Hartley understood about cruelty was that you take it slow, in pieces, until the other man forgets he ever owned anything. Night 1, Blake came back to his cell and found his mattress on the floor, his sheets gone. His family photos slid under the bars and stamped with a boot print. His mother's face stared up at him through a gray smear of dirt. He picked it up. He wiped it clean with his thumb. He said nothing. Night 2. His commissary vanished. Night 3. They came for the letters. Blake wrote his mother every day. He waited on her replies, the way a drowning man waits on air. Hartley learned this, because Hartley learned everything, and he made sure the letters stopped arriving. By night 4, others joined in, because cruelty is easier in a crowd. And Puit watched it all. He knew the schedule of the tier camera better than the warden did. He knew the angle of the blind spot near the showers. On the nights Hartley worked, Puit found paperwork at the far desk, his back to the tier, his radio turned low. Once a younger guard asked him about it. You see what is happening to the new guy in C? Puit did not look up. I see a quiet block, he said. Quiet blocks are good blocks. Do not go making it loud. The younger guard went quiet too. That was how it spread. There is a thing that happens to a man in that situation. What looks like surrender from the outside is not always what it is on the inside. What Hartley saw as a man bending to schedule, Blake was doing something else. He was holding a line, counting rounds, keeping a promise to a woman who was counting on him to come home. Then on night 5, the phone call came. Blake got 4 minutes on the tier phone. His aunt's voice came through, small and tight, and he knew before she said it. His mother had taken a turn. The treatment was not holding. The doctors were using words like comfort and time. "She asks about you," his aunt said. "Every single day. She says she needs you to know she is proud of you. She said to tell you that exactly. She is proud of you." Blake closed his eyes. Down the tier, Hartley's laugh rolled toward him like a wave. "Tell her I am okay," Blake said. His voice did not shake. "Tell her I am coming home." He hung up. He stood with his forehead against the cold cinder block and breathed. In for 4 counts. Out for 4. The way his trainer taught him between rounds when his body wanted to quit. 1 swing. That was all it would take to feel better for 1 second and lose everything that mattered. So he kept the hands down. Hartley found him there against the wall and leaned close. "Couple more weeks," he murmured. "You will be carrying my tray. Maybe shining my shoes." He patted Blake's cheek. Twice. Soft. The worst kind of soft. Quiet boys make good pets. Blake did not move. He let Hartley walk away, laughing. But that night, lying on a mattress on the floor, he did something he had not done since the day they read his sentence. He flexed his right hand in the dark, slow, finger by finger, feeling the old machinery wake, just checking, just in case. In those same hours, the world outside was asking about him in ways he could not yet hear. The library was the one quiet place in Ironwood. Hartley did not read. Blake went for the silence. He found the old man already there. Gray beard, half glasses low on his nose, a chess book open in front of him. The man from the chow hall, the one who had watched the tray, hit the floor and set down his fork. The man watched Blake sit. He watched the way Blake set his hands flat on the table. Then he said, "I know those hands." Blake looked up. "Walter Hayes. I trained fighters for 30 years before this place." He tapped the table. "I watched you take the state title. Round 9. You dropped Doyle with a check hook nobody saw coming." He paused. "Except me. I saw it." He looked at Blake steadily. "I have been watching you walk this block like a man holding his breath." "I am not here to fight," Blake said quietly. "I know that too." Walter leaned in. "That restraint made you a champion out there. In here, it is getting you killed slow." He paused. "What is your plan?" Blake was silent a long moment. "Keep my head down. Do my time. Get home to my mother. And if they do not let you?" Blake's jaw tightened. He did not answer. He did not have to. Walter nodded slowly, the way a corner man nods when the bell is very close. "Then you do not start it," he said. "But son, you finish it." It happened on the 7th night. The shower room was the blind spot. No camera reached inside that tiled corner. No lens, no witness. Just water and concrete and whatever a man could do there in the dark. Blake went to wash before lockdown. He heard the door swing shut behind him. He heard the bolt. He turned. And there they were. 4 of them. Hartley in front. 2 of his crew flanking. A 4th by the door with something in his hand. Low. Half hidden. A phone. They wanted this filmed. A trophy. A lesson for the whole block to pass around. "You do not want to do this," Blake said. His voice was even. "Open the door. Walk out. Nobody has to get hurt." Hartley laughed. They all laughed. It was the last easy breath any of them would take. The first man came from the right, swinging wide. To everyone who watched the video later, it looked like the man simply fell. To Blake, time slowed the way it always had. The way it had since he was 16 and first stepped through the ropes. He slipped the punch by an inch. He did not step back. He just moved his head, let the fist pass his ear, and answered with one short left hook to the body. The man folded around it like a coat off a hook and dropped to the wet floor. 1 second. The second man lunged. Blake caught the wrist, turned his hips, used the man's own weight to redirect him into the tile. A short right uppercut met him on the way in. A sharp, clean sound. And the second man sat down hard against the wall. 3 seconds. Hartley charged. All 240 pounds of him, arms wide to crush. This was the moment he had built 11 years for. The bull rush that had ended a dozen men. Blake did not meet it. He pivoted, light on his feet, and let the giant stumble past into empty air. As Hartley turned off balance, Blake stepped in and threw the punch Walter Hayes had named in the library, the check hook. Short, tight, perfect, landing flush on the jaw with the full turn of his body behind it. Hartley's knees vanished. The big man went down like a building, slow at the top, fast at the bottom, and hit the floor so hard the water jumped. 7 seconds. The fourth man, the one with the phone, stopped recording his trophy and started recording his own retreat. He backed into the corner, hands shaking, camera still pointed because he had forgotten how to lower it. "I am out," he stammered. "I am out. I am out." Blake looked at him. Then, go. 12 seconds. Start to finish. 4 men on the floor. 1 man standing, untouched. And here is the part the whole world would replay in slow motion. Blake did not stand over Hartley. He did not say a word. He walked to the second man against the wall, knelt down, and checked that he was breathing. Then he stood, turned off the still-running shower, and walked to the bolted door. He worked it open with steady hands. He stepped out into the tier. He thought it was over. He had no idea what was coming. The fourth man's phone had caught all 12 seconds. Every slip, every counter. The check hook that dropped the giant. And then the image that would not leave anyone alone. The winner, on his knees, checking the breathing of the man who had come to kill him. The video left Ironwood the next morning. By nightfall, it was somewhere it could never be put back. By the third day, it had a name. People called it 12 seconds. A retired trainer pointed at his screen and said, "That is not a brawler. That is a schooled fighter. Look at the footwork." The question spread faster than the fight. Who was this man? Why was someone who moved like that locked in a place like that? And why, when he could have done so much worse, did he stop the instant the danger stopped? Inside Ironwood, the official story had already hardened into something else entirely. Blake was pulled from his cell and taken to the special housing unit. Solitary. A concrete box the size of a parking space. 23 hours a day inside. 1 hour in a cage that passed for a yard. Puig had written that he had responded to a disturbance and found Foster standing over the victims. Victims, that was the word they used. Warden Garrett Cole signed the order before lunch. Cole was a man who hated 2 things above all else: paperwork and attention. The video had given him a flood of both. The quickest way to make it stop, he believed, was to bury the man at the center of it. Blake sat in the box and held his own silence in both hands. He thought of his mother somewhere past the fences, asking after a son who had just vanished from every phone and every visiting list. He thought of the promise he had made and kept for 9 days and broken in 12 seconds. He could not even tell himself he had been wrong, but the truth never seemed to matter in here. The truth had a fractured jaw and a notepad. And the truth was winning. It might have ended there. A man erased in a concrete box while the world moved on to the next clip. Except the video had reached one more person. Eleanor Brooks had spent 20 years suing prisons. She ran a small legal aid office with bad coffee and a wall of case files, and she had a particular allergy to official stories that arrived too clean. She watched 12 seconds the way she watched everything. Twice, slow, the second time, with the sound off. And what she saw was not what the headlines saw. She saw a man who never advanced. She saw counters, not attacks. She saw 4 aggressors and 1 defender. And she saw the defender stop the instant he could kneel to check a fallen man's breathing. "You do not get that footage from an ambush," she said to no one in her office. "You get it from a man trying very hard not to kill anyone." She drove 4 hours to Ironwood. They put her in a visiting booth with scratched glass. When they brought Blake in, thinner than the video, eyes hollowed from the box, She introduced herself in one sentence. "My name is Eleanor Brooks. I think you are being buried by a story someone else wrote. And I would like to write the ending." Blake studied her through the glass. He had learned not to hope. "They have 4 witnesses," he said. "A guard's report. And my record. And a video that already made me the villain." "You have a video," Brooks said, "that I can read better than anyone who has tried so far." She opened her folder. "Tell me everything. Start with night 1. So he did. The mattress on the floor. The boot print on his mother's photograph. The letters that stopped coming. The 7 nights. The bolted door. And the detail that made Eleanor Brooks stop writing and look up slowly. "He recorded it himself," she said. "Hartley wanted it filmed to document a victory." She tapped her pen against her teeth, and he documented the opposite. She frowned. "But it is still his word against 4 others on how it started. I need more than the phone. I need the 7 nights before it. I need a pattern." "There are no cameras in the showers," Blake said. "That is why they chose it." "No," Brooks agreed. "But there are cameras everywhere else." She flipped pages faster now. "The tier. The mess hall. The corridor outside your cell. 7 nights of harassment does not disappear. It leaves footage. Mattress on the floor is a corridor camera. Commissary stolen is a tier camera. Every time one of them came to your door, at lights out." She looked up. "Mr. Foster, where I come from, when an institution protects a blind spot this carefully, it is not because they only have 1 camera. It is because they know exactly what all the others would show." She filed the request that afternoon. 3 days later, the prison's response landed on her desk. She read it once and went very still. The footage from the C-block tier camera for all 7 relevant nights was missing, logged as down for maintenance. Every night Hartley worked. The lens had been dark. Someone had turned it off. She looked at the maintenance log for a long time. Then she said, quietly, to the empty room, "A missing tape is not innocence. It is a confession," with the words scratched out. She took the maintenance log to a hearing and stood in front of a review panel. The warden, a state corrections official who had flown in because the video would not stop trending. Garrett Cole had wanted this quiet. Instead, he had a lawyer with a folder and the whole country watching the door. Brooks laid out the official story first, in their own words, so everyone could hear how clean it was: unprovoked, ambush, animal. Then she set the maintenance log on the table. "The C-block tier camera," she said, "failed for 7 consecutive nights. The exact 7 nights my client says he was harassed. It recovered the morning after the shower incident. 7 nights dark, then suddenly working again." She looked at Cole. "That is either the most precise equipment failure in the history of this institution, or someone scheduled it." Cole's jaw worked. "Equipment fails." "It does," Brooks agreed pleasantly. "Which is why, 8 months ago, your facility installed a pilot program. Secondary cameras. Smaller units. Separate system. Separate drive. Mounted to cover the blind spots the old ones missed." She let that sit, including the corridor outside the C-block showers. The room changed temperature. Puit, standing against the wall, went still in a way that everyone in the room noticed at the same time. Because Puit had memorized the old camera's schedule. He had not known about the new one. Nobody on the floor had. It was a memo he had never read. A second eye he had never accounted for, recording quietly in the dark while he turned his back at the far desk and decided something was not his business. Brooks opened her laptop. She played the 7 nights. Night 1. 3 men outside Blake's cell. A mattress dragged across the floor. A boot coming down on something small and square. Night 3. Hartley's crew at the mail slot. Night 5. Blake against the cinder block wall, phone to his ear, and Hartley leaning in to pat his cheek twice. Soft. The worst kind of soft. And the 7th night. The corridor outside the showers. 4 men filing in. Hartley last, throwing the bolt behind him. The timestamp read 9:14. My client, Brooks said quietly, entered that room at 9:13. She closed the laptop. That is not an ambush by one man. That is an ambush of one man. And every second of the 7 nights before it is on record. She looked at each panel member in turn. You keep calling my client trained. Let me tell you how trained. She slid a sheet across the table. Blake Foster, 18 professional fights, 18 wins, 14 knockouts. State lightweight champion, Cole said. You are proving our point. He is dangerous. I am proving the opposite, Brooks said. And in about 10 seconds, you will understand why. She played the fight. Once. At full speed. Once. Frame by frame. A fighter at his level, she said, narrating over the slow motion, generates enough force to end a life with a single punch. He knows it. It is the first thing they teach you. So watch what he does with 4 men in a locked room and every legal right to defend himself by any means necessary. She pointed. First man. A body shot. Not the head. The body. Drops him. Does not damage him. Second man. She uses his own momentum against the wall. 1 short counter. Third man, she froze on the check hook. 1 punch, clean, and then she advanced the footage. He steps back. He does not follow up. She let the final image hold on the screen. Blake, kneeling, checking the breathing of the man who had bolted the door. The most dangerous man in that room, she said softly, on his knees, making sure the person who came to hurt him is still alive. She looked at the panel. That is not the record of an animal. That is the most disciplined act of self-defense any of you will ever see on a screen. The room held the kind of silence Blake knew well. The kind that falls right before a decision. Then Walter Hayes, who had made parole 2 weeks prior and driven 4 hours to sit in that waiting room until he was called, walked in and told the panel about 7 nights he had watched from a library doorway. 7 nights he could not stop, and the one morning he had decided he was done watching. The corrections official turned to Puit. Officer. The pilot cameras. Were you aware of them? Puit opened his mouth. Closed it. The pause was its own answer. And everyone in that room heard it. Justice, when it finally moved fast. Wade Hartley was charged with felony assault, 4 counts. His own trophy became the case against him. The parole he had been counting on vanished, and the court added 8 years to a sentence he had thought was nearly done. The king of C-Block walked out of the hearing in cuffs to a silence from the other inmates that was louder than any cheer. Officer Dale Puit was stripped of his badge and charged with falsifying records and willful neglect. The nod he had given Hartley across a chow hall, the smallest thing imaginable, had become the thing that ended his career. Warden Garrett Cole resigned before they could remove him. The man who hated attention left under the brightest lights of his life. And then Eleanor Brooks turned to the conviction that had put Blake inside in the first place. She took it apart the way she took everything apart, slowly, in daylight. The grainy tape, the rushed lineup, the public defender with 40 other cases. She found the gas station's original footage, the full version, and a clerk who, shown a clear photograph at last, said the words that should have been said 3 years earlier. That is not him. That man was heavier, older. That is not the man. The court vacated Blake Foster's conviction on a Tuesday morning. Wrongful imprisonment. Immediate release. He walked out of Ironwood through the same 3 gates that had swallowed him into a parking lot, full of people who had followed 12 seconds of his life all the way to this moment. They went quiet as he passed. The way crowds go quiet around something they sense is larger than a photograph. He did not raise a fist. He did not make a speech. He kept walking toward the one car that mattered. His aunt was driving. The passenger seat was empty, reclined, with a blanket folded on it. She wanted to come, his aunt said, her voice breaking on every word. She made us bring her this far. She is at the hospital, Blake. She is holding on. She has been holding on for this. He made it in time. He walked into a room that smelled of antiseptic and sat down beside a bed where a small woman lay, and she opened her eyes and saw her son. Free. Whole. Home. She lifted one thin hand to his face, to the cheek that had been slapped in a prison yard what felt like a lifetime ago, and she held it there. "I knew," she whispered. "I always knew you were coming back." He stayed. The gym opened 8 months later. A leased space in a rough part of town. A concrete floor. A ring he built himself from second-hand rope and donated canvas. He hung a single sign over the door. No champion's name, no logo. Just 2 words. Second corner. Because everyone deserves someone in their corner the second time around. The kids came first. The ones the neighborhood had already given up on. The ones teachers called trouble and police called familiar. Blake did not ask about their records. He asked about their footwork. He taught them the thing he had learned the hard way in a place with no windows. Real strength is the power you choose not to use. Anybody can throw a punch. It takes a fighter to know when not to. Walter Hayes ran the morning sessions. The old trainer had made parole 6 months after Blake's release, and the first call he made from outside was to the gym. He stood in the corner now with his half-glasses and his chess book, barking at teenagers about keeping their hands up, and for the first time in 30 years, he looked like a man exactly where he belonged. 3 years after the gym opened, a 17-year-old named Darius, who had arrived on the first day with a juvenile record and nothing else, won the state junior lightweight championship. He stood in the corner of the ring afterward, with his hands raised, and looked down at Blake on the floor below him. Blake looked back, and neither of them needed to say anything about what that moment meant or what it had taken to reach it. Eleanor Brooks visited sometimes between cases. She still carried a folder. It was always full. She said the gym was the only place she had ever been where everybody walked out ahead. Blake still trained early, alone. Before the kids arrived, he would wrap his hands the old way, slow, knuckle by knuckle, and work the heavy bag in the gray light. He thought sometimes about a yard, a slap, a promise. He had walked into that prison a champion nobody knew. He walked out a man everybody did, and he had decided, somewhere in a concrete box, that if his name was going to mean anything, it would mean this: a second corner for anyone the world had counted out. The line between the man on the floor and the man standing over him is thinner than anyone wants to believe. What makes the difference is not strength. It is the choice about what strength is for. Blake Foster never forgot what it cost to hold that line. Neither should we. If this story reached you, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment and tell me about a time you held a line nobody else saw you holding. I read every one, and if you are someone sitting in a corner right now, wondering if it is worth it to keep going, this is for you. It is worth it. Your corner is right here. At Legacy Stories, we find the people the world counted out, and we tell their stories until the world counts them back in. Subscribe and stay with us. Your second corner is right here.